Right after I paid off my dream bakery, my sister showed up with my parents demanding a 50% share of my business. This belongs to the family. She deserves partnership, they insisted, so I delivered words that left her in tears. I was 28 years old when I scraped together my last loan payment. The wire transfer confirmation sat on my phone screen like a trophy, and I must have stared at it for 15 minutes straight in the parking lot of my bank. 7 years of grinding, saving, sacrificing everything to build something from absolutely nothing. My bakery was finally completely, undeniably mine. Flour and Fire Artisan Bakery occupied a converted warehouse space in downtown Portland. The exposed brick walls held the smell of fresh sourdough and brown butter, the way a church holds incense. I'd installed the commercial ovens myself with YouTube tutorials and determination that bordered on obsession. The vintage Edison bulbs I'd haggled for, an estate sale cast warm light over mismatched wooden tables I'd refinished by hand. Every square inch represented a choice I made, a dollar I earned. A night I stayed awake, running numbers until my vision blurred. My alarm went off at 3:30 every morning. I'd arrive in darkness to start the croissant dough, the whole place silent except for the hum of refrigerators and my own breathing. By 5, my assistant manager, Kesha, would show up and we'd work in comfortable rhythm, her on the espresso bar while I pulled golden loaves from the ovens. Our regulars knew us by name. Mrs. Chen always ordered the same almond croissant. Derek from the law firm down the street had a standing order for a dozen everything bagels every Friday. We become part of the neighborhood's morning routine, and that feeling of being woven into people's daily lives meant more than any profit margin ever could. The business had grown faster than I projected. Year 1, I barely broke even. Year 2, I hired my first employee. By year 5, I had a staff of 8 and a waiting list for our weekend baking classes. Food bloggers started featuring us. A local magazine named us Best New Bakery in 2021. I still had the article framed behind the register, though I'd never admit how many times I reread it when imposter syndrome crept in during rough weeks. I'd scheduled the celebration dinner for that Friday night, just me and my best friend Rachel at the Thai place where we first plotted the business plan on cocktail napkins 7 years earlier. But Thursday afternoon, my mother called with that particular tone in her voice, the one that made my stomach drop before she even finished speaking. Your sister needs to talk to you about something important. We're all coming by the bakery tomorrow morning. 9 Onquak. I was elbow deep in Ryoto. Mom, I can't just drop everything. 9 Honquak. Geraldine, this is family. She hung up before I could argue. I stared at my phone, flower handprints on the screen, feeling that old familiar dread settle into my chest like I'd swallowed stones. My younger sister Vanessa and I hadn't spoken in 4 months. Our last conversation ended with her calling me selfish and me telling her to lose my number. The details didn't matter anymore. It was always some version of the same fight we'd been having since childhood. She'd want something. I'd set a boundary. She'd weaponize our parents' guilt against me, and I'd eventually cave, or we'd stop speaking for a while. This was the longest silence we'd maintained. Friday morning arrived with a kind of autumn crispness that usually made me grateful to work with ovens. I'd been up since 3, as always, but my hands shook while I shaped the morning baguettes. Keisha noticed. You okay, boss? Family stuff. I didn't elaborate. Keisha was smart enough not to push. They arrived at 9:15, always late, always unapologetic about it. My mother swept in first, wearing that cream-colored coat she saved for occasions she deemed significant. My father followed, hands in his pockets, eyes already apologetic in that way. That meant he knew what was coming and had chosen sides long before arriving. Ben Vanessa, 26 years old, and dressed like she was heading to a corporate interview in a navy blazer I recognized as expensive. Her hair was blown out perfectly. Her makeup was camera-ready. She dressed for battle. The morning rush had ended, leaving just 2 laptop regulars in the corner who barely glanced up. I asked Hisha to watch the front and led my family to the back table near the kitchen entrance. My safe space suddenly felt contaminated. Coffee? I offered, because hospitality was branded into my DNA, even when I wanted to scream. This isn't a social visit. Vanessa's voice was tight, controlled. She'd practice whatever speech was coming. Mom put her hand over mine on the table, Her skin felt papery and cold. Honey, your sister has been doing a lot of thinking about her future. My stomach twisted. Okay, I want in. Vanessa looked me directly in the eye. 50% partnership. I'll work here, help you expand, bring real business strategy to the operation. The audacity of it hit me like a physical blow. I actually laughed, a sharp bark of disbelief. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? She slid a folder across the table. I had a lawyer draw of partnership papers. It's fair market value, and frankly, you need me. This place has potential, but you're limiting yourself with your small-time thinking. The folder sat there between us like a grenade. I could see the lawyer's letterhead through the clear cover. Morrison and Associates, one of those downtown firms that charged $400 an hour for consultations. She'd actually spent money on this fantasy. Fair market value, I repeated slowly. And what exactly do you think that is, Vanessa? Did your lawyer tell you what 7 years of 18-hour days are worth? What about the value of relationships I've built with suppliers who give me priority on specialty flowers because I've never missed a payment? The reputation that means people drive across town specifically for my sourdough? She waved her hand dismissively. That's all built into the business valuation. The lawyer looked at your revenue streams, your assets. You had someone investigate my finances. Mom jumped in quickly. Honey, it's just standard due diligence. Vanessa wanted to make sure she was making a sound investment. Investment? The word tasted bitter. This isn't Shark Tank. Mom, you can't just walk in and invest in someone's life. I didn't open the folder. Vanessa, you've never worked a day in food service. You don't wake up at 3 o'clock a.m. You can't tell brios from challah. What exactly do you think you're contributing here? Vision, expansion, strategy, marketing expertise. She ticked items off on her fingers like she was presenting to a board. You're good at the baking. I'd handle everything else, the business side, which clearly isn't your strength. The condescension dripped from every word. My father shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Mom squeezed my hand harder. I felt something snap inside my chest. All the years of biting my tongue, of being the responsible one, of watching Vanessa glide through life on charm and excuses while I clawed my way forward. It all crystallized into perfect cold clarity. My business skills, I said carefully, took this bakery from a pipe dream to a 6-figure revenue stream in 7 years. I negotiated supplier contracts that saved me 30% on organic flour. I built a social media presence that brings in tourists from Seattle. I implemented an inventory system that reduced waste by 40%. But sure, Vanessa, tell me more about what I'm bad at. She flinched, but recovered quickly. Those are operational details. I'm talking about real growth, franchising potential, multiple locations. You think too small because you're stuck in the day-to-day. I think realistically because I understand the industry. Do you know what percentage of restaurants fail in the first year? 60%. In 5 years, 80%. But Flower and Fire is here, thriving, because I made smart decisions based on actual experience, not NBA theory, from someone who's never run anything. Dad finally spoke up, his voice carrying that false cheerfulness he used when trying to smooth over conflict. Now, Geraldine, there's no need to attack your sister's education. I'm not attacking her education. I'm questioning her assumption that a degree entitles her to half of something she didn't build. I pulled my hand away from Mom's grip. Let me guess how this conversation was supposed to go. You all show up, present this as a done deal, and I'm supposed to be so grateful for the family unity that I just sign whatever papers she brought. Am I close? The silence was answer enough. Vanessa's jaw tightened. We thought you'd see the opportunity, having family involved, building something together. Most people would kill for that. Most people didn't spend their childhood watching you get everything handed to you, while I had to earn every scrap of approval. The words were out before I could stop them. Old resentment I thought I'd buried years ago. Remember when I wanted to go to culinary school? Dad said it was too expensive, not a real career. But when you wanted to do that semester in Paris for your marketing degree, suddenly the money appeared. Mom's face flushed. That's not fair. The circumstances were different. You're right. The circumstances were that Vanessa wanted something and Vanessa got it. Like always, I looked at my sister directly. I had to take out loans for community college culinary classes. I worked at Denny's for 2 years to save for equipment. When I finally got the loan for this place, the bank required a cosigner. I asked Dad. You know what he said? My father wouldn't meet my eyes. He said it was too risky, that bakeries fail all the time, that maybe I should get a stable job first, prove myself. My throat felt tight, but I kept going. So I found another way. Rachel's dad co-signed because he believed in me more than my own father did. And now, 7 years and one paid-off loan later, after proving myself beyond any reasonable doubt, you all show up wanting a piece of what you wouldn't help me start. We had our reasons, Dad said weakly. We were trying to protect you from what? Success, independence, the ability to say, I did this myself. I stood up, needing physical distance. Through the window, I could see a young couple taking selfies in front of the bakery's hand-painted sign. They had no idea they were documenting the moment my family imploded. Here's what's really happening. Vanessa quit another job. She's panicking about her future, and instead of doing the hard work of figuring out what she actually wants, she's decided to grab onto something that looks stable. My something. Vanessa stood too, her voice rising. That's not true. I've always admired what you built here. I've told people about this place, bragged about my sister, the baker. Bragging isn't support. You know what support would have looked like? Showing up on opening day, offering to help during that first brutal year when I was doing everything alone, asking how I was doing instead of only calling when you needed something. The hurt was leaking through my anger now. You didn't even come to the soft opening. You said you had a date, a Tinder date with some guy whose name you didn't remember 3 days later. Her face went pale. Mom reached for Vanessa's hand. You're trying to make me the villain, Vanessa said, her voice shaking. But I'm not the bad guy for wanting to be part of something good, for wanting to work with my sister. Geraldine, honey, this could be wonderful, working together, building something as a family. Isn't that what you always wanted? What I always wanted was to build my own business, which I did by myself while Vanessa was doing what exactly? I looked at my sister. Last I checked, you were working at that startup downtown, the one with the ping pong tables and the unlimited PTO you constantly posted about. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I quit. You quit. The culture was toxic. My talents weren't being utilized. I'd heard versions of this story approximately 7 times since she graduated college. Every job had some fatal flaw that meant she deserved to leave. Every boss was incompetent. Every workplace was beneath her. So now you want to parachute into my business, the one I've bled for, and take half of it. Just like that. It's family business. My father finally spoke, his voice quiet. We've always shared everything. That particular delusion made me see red. Shared. Dad, when did this family ever share anything with me? When I needed a cosigner for my business loan, where were you? When I was working 3 jobs to save for the deposit on this space, who helped? When I was so tired I was hallucinating during that first year and needed just one person to believe in me. Who showed up? Silence. My mother withdrew her hand. Rachel. I answered my own question. My best friend, who isn't related to me by blood, showed up. The community that gathered around this place showed up. You know who didn't? Any of you? Vanessa leaned forward, eyes glittering. That's not fair. We had our own responsibilities. I was in school. You were in school for 6 years getting a degree you're apparently not using. And now I want to use my skills here. Why are you being so selfish? That word again. The one they always deployed when I refused to sacrifice myself on the altar of family obligation. Let me get this absolutely straight. I kept my voice level, though. Fury was building behind my ribcage. You want me to just hand over half of my business? The one I built alone. The one I've nearly killed myself for because we happen to share DNA. Mom jumped in. Geraldine, don't be dramatic. Vanessa isn't asking you to give it away. She'd work here, contribute. Mom, she just quit another job because it was toxic. How long before my bakery is toxic? How long before the early mornings are too hard? The physical labor isn't what she signed up for. The customers are too demanding. I looked at Vanessa. You've never stuck with anything difficult in your entire life. That's a lie. Her voice shook with rage. You always do this. You always act like you're so much better than me, like your suffering makes you superior. I don't think I'm superior. I think I'm tired. Tired of being treated like the family ATM, like my success is something you're all entitled to harvest whenever convenient. Dad stood up trying to play peacemaker. Let's all calm down. No. I stayed seated, but my voice was steel. You all came here with demands. You thought you could steamroll me because that's what's always worked before. But I'm done. The folder still sat between us. I picked it up and tore it in half without looking inside. Vanessa gasped like I'd slapped her. This business is mine. I don't owe you access to it. I don't owe you a job, a partnership, or a safety net for your latest career crisis. How can you be so cruel? Mom's voice wavered. She's your sister and you're my mother, but you never once asked what I needed when I was building this. You never came to the grand opening. You never ate a single pastry I made until this place was successful enough to brag about. The words came faster now. Years of resentment, finally finding air. But now that it's paid off, now that it's worth something, suddenly everyone cares. Suddenly it's family business. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. And for just a second, I saw her as she'd been when we were kids, following me around, wanting to do everything I did, crying when I went to sleepovers without her. Then the moment passed, and she was just the adult who'd made her choices, same as I'd made mine. I needed this, she whispered. I needed something stable, something real, and I thought my sister would help me. Then you should have come and asked for a job, an actual job. Starting at entry level, earning your place like every other person I've hired. But you didn't. You came with a lawyer and parents as backup and demanded partnership in something you didn't build. I stood up, my chair scraping loud against the floor. The laptop regulars were definitely listening now, pretending not to. You want to know the real difference between us, Vanessa? When I needed something, I didn't demand someone hand it to me. I worked nights at a grocery store. I lived in a studio apartment with no heat. I learned skills, took risks, failed repeatedly, and kept going. You spent your entire adult life waiting for something to be given to you. That's not, she started. It is. And the saddest part, you could have been great at something if you'd ever pushed through the hard parts, but you never do. You quit when it gets difficult, and then you show up at someone else's table demanding to share their harvest. My mother stood, her face flushed. I didn't raise you to talk to your sister this way. You didn't raise me to be a doormat either, though you tried. The words came out colder than I intended. I love you, Mom. I love Dad, but I'm done pretending that family means I owe you pieces of myself. I don't. The air between us crackled with everything unsaid over decades. Mom looked like I'd struck her. Dad seemed to shrink into his coat. Vanessa's tears had dried, leaving her makeup streaked, and her expression hardening into something defensive. Fine, Vanessa said, her voice like ice. Keep your precious bakery. Keep being alone because you're too proud to accept help, but don't come crying to us when you realize how lonely it is at the top of your tiny empire. I won't be lonely. I'll be free. I held her gaze, free from the constant emotional blackmail, free from wondering when the next demand is coming, free from feeling guilty for having boundaries. Dad tried one more time, his voice pleading. Geraldine, if you just look at the proposal with an open mind, there's no amount of open-mindedness that makes this okay. Dad, she's asking for half of my business, half of my equity, my profit, my say in every decision. For what? Her last name, her genetics. I shook my head. If she wanted to work here, I'd have hired her like any other employee. Minimum wage, entry level, learning the actual business from the ground up. But that's not what this is about. This is about entitlement. Vanessa grabbed her purse, movements sharp and angry. You know what? You're right. I was stupid to think you changed. You're still the same selfish person who always put herself first. The projection was almost funny. I put myself first because no one else did. That's called survival, Vanessa. Something you might understand if you'd ever had to actually struggle for anything. I've struggled. No, you've been inconvenienced. There's a difference. I was so tired suddenly. Bone deep exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with early mornings. Real struggle is working until your hands bleed. It's eating ramen for months to save $50. It's lying awake at night terrified you'll lose everything because one equipment failure could bankrupt you. You've never experienced actual risk because someone always caught you. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. That's what parents do. We protect our children. You protected one child. You let the other one figure it out alone. The truth hung between us, ugly and undeniable, and maybe that was better for me in the long run. Maybe I'm stronger because I had to be, but don't pretend it was fair. Don't stand here and ask me to subsidize the coddling you've been doing for 26 years. I walked to the front, grabbed a bag, and filled it with the morning's best pastries: almond, pain au chocolat, a cinnamon roll still warm from the oven. Vanessa watched me, confused, as I brought the bag back. Here, I handed it to her. I'll give you this. Fresh pastries made with my hands, in my bakery. That's what I'm willing to share. If you want more, you'll have to earn it somewhere else. Vanessa took the bag automatically, tears streaming down her face now. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. You should go, I said quietly. All of you. They left. Mom kissed my cheek on the way out, a gesture so automatic and meaningless, it hurt worse than anger would have. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa walked out last, holding that bag of pastries like evidence of something, though I wasn't sure what. Kesha appeared beside me as I watched them climb into Dad's sedan through the front windows. Boss? I'm fine. You're shaking. I looked down. She was right. My hands trembled like I'd been standing in a freezer. The adrenaline was fading, leaving just exhaustion and a peculiar emptiness. Take 5, Keisha said. I've got the front. I went to the kitchen and sat on the flour sacks where I sometimes took breaks between batches. The space smelled like butter and yeast and 7 years of my life. Everything I'd said was true. I believed every word. So why did I feel like I just burned down more than a relationship? My phone buzzed. A text from my Aunt Linda. Your mother just called me in tears. How could you treat your family this way? Another from my cousin James. Dude, really? Vanessa just needed some help. And another from an uncle I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Very disappointed in your selfishness. They'd already started their campaign, painting me as the villain in a story they didn't understand. Vanessa was the victim, the struggling young woman just asking for help. I was the successful older sister who turned her back on family in their time of need. Never mind the context, never mind the history, never mind that help meant handing over half of everything I'd built. I turned off my phone and sat in the flower-scented dimness, listening to the sounds of the bakery functioning without me, the hiss of the espresso machine, the chime when customers entered, Keisha's easy laugh as she chatted with regulars. Life continued. The world didn't stop because my family thought I was cruel. Footsteps approached. I looked up to find Keisha holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one and sat down beside me without asking. You want to talk about it? She asked. Not really. Okay. She sipped her coffee. We sat in companionable silence for a moment before she spoke again. For what it's worth, I only heard pieces, but you weren't wrong. You don't know what they asked for. No, she said, but I know you, and I know you don't blow up at people without a damn good reason. She bumped my shoulder gently. I also know what it took to build this place. I was employee number 1, remember? I saw you crying in the walk-in when you thought you'd have to close. I watched you work a 100-hour week when Jake quit and we couldn't afford a replacement yet. So whoever came in here demanding a piece of that, they can fuck right off. A laugh bubbled up unexpectedly. Keisha, I'm serious. This place exists because you refused to quit. Because you figured out problems nobody taught you how to solve. Because you cared more about the quality of a croissant than any sane person should. She smiled. That's not something you just hand over to someone who waltzed in with a folder. It was my sister. Even worse, family members who only show up when you've got something worth taking. That's predatory, boss. That's not love. Her words settled something in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I'd simply refused to be used, and they punished me for it. Thank you, I said quietly. Always. Keisha stood, dusting flour off her jeans. Now get your ass up. Derek's here for his bagels, and he's asking about catering for some partner retreat. I got my ass up, because that's what you do. You feel your feelings for 5 minutes, then you go back to work. The ovens don't care about family drama. The dough doesn't wait for you to process trauma. Business continues, and you either keep up or you drown. Derek wanted pricing for a breakfast spread for 40 people. Bagels, spreads, fruit, and pastries. I gave him numbers off the top of my head, promised to email a formal quote by end of day. He seemed impressed by my composure, had no idea I'd just torched my relationship with my entire family an hour earlier. That was the thing about being a business owner. You learn to compartmentalize, to smile when you wanted to scream, to be professional when you felt like falling apart. Nobody cared about your personal disasters when they wanted their almond croissant, and they wanted it now. Rachel called an hour later. Somehow Mom had already gotten to her, spinning the story into something unrecognizable. I gave her the real version while shaping focaccia dough, my hands needing the familiar motion. "You did the right thing," Rachel said when I finished. "Then why do I feel awful?" "Because you're not actually made of stone, despite your best efforts." I heard her smile through the phone. "Want me to come by after work? Bring wine?" "Make it whiskey," she laughed. "That bad?" "That definitive." The day proceeded in its usual rhythm. Lunch rush brought the regulars and some new faces drawn by the scent of fresh bread. A woman from Seattle ordered 3 dozen assorted pastries for a corporate event next week. Derek bought his standing bagel order and told me his firm was expanding. Did I do catering? Life continued. Business continued. The world kept turning despite the small family implosion that had happened at Table 7. My phone buzzed repeatedly throughout the afternoon, texts from extended family who had been fed some version of events. My Aunt Linda, family is everything. My cousin James, harsh 'cause she's struggling. A high school friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Your mom called my mom. Sounds intense. I turned off my phone. By closing time, I was hollowed out. Keisha and the evening crew finished cleanup while I did inventory in the back office. Numbers were soothing. Numbers made sense. 4 pounds of butter remaining. Order 6. 3 bags of bread flour. Order 12. Everything quantifiable, manageable, controllable. Rachel showed up at 8 with expensive bourbon and Thai takeout, the same order we'd gotten 7 years ago when this was still just a dream and a terrifying amount of debt. "To paying off the loans," she toasted, raising her glass. "To knowing what belongs to you," I countered. We drank. The bourbon burned perfectly. "Your mom called me 3 times," Rachel said, unpacking pad thai. "She's worried you've changed, become hard." "I have." "Good. Soft doesn't survive what you've been through." We ate in the dining area, surrounded by empty tables and the lingering smell of the day's baking. Rachel told me about her new relationship, a woman named Kelly who taught 4th grade and cried at dog food commercials. I told her about the Seattle order and Derek's catering question. We talked about normal things, future things, anything but the morning's explosion. But eventually, the conversation circled back like it had to. "She really brought a lawyer's proposal?" Rachel asked, stabbing at a spring roll. "Complete with valuation and partnership terms. She'd actually hired Morrison and Associates. That's not cheap." "Where'd she get the money?" I paused mid-bite. "I hadn't even thought about that. I have no idea. She just quit her job." "Maybe your parents gave it to her, or she's got savings." Rachel's expression darkened. "Or she was so confident you'd say yes that she was planning to pay the lawyer with her half of your future profits." That last possibility made my stomach turn. The entitlement of assuming my agreement, of spending money she didn't have on claiming something she hadn't earned. It was so perfectly Vanessa that it hurt. "She cried when I said no," I said quietly. "Real tears, not manipulative ones. I think she actually believed I'd agree." "Because you usually do," Rachel said gently, eventually, after enough pressure. "Not this time." "No, not this time." Rachel raised her glass again. "To growth, to boundaries, to choosing yourself." We clinked glasses. The bourbon was making everything feel slightly distant, like I was watching my own life from behind glass. Maybe that was better. Maybe I needed that distance to process what I'd done. "Do you think I'm selfish?" I asked. Rachel set down her glass and looked at me with the kind of focus that meant she was about to say something that mattered. "I think you're the least selfish person I know. You employ 8 people who depend on you for their livelihood. You donate day-old bread to the homeless shelter every single night. You taught free baking classes to those kids from the community center last summer. You're constantly putting others first. Customers, employees, the community. The only people you're supposedly selfish toward are the ones who've done nothing but take from you your whole life." "Mom says family is supposed to support each other," I thought. Rachel's words echoed. "Support goes both ways. Maybe they've been withdrawing from your account for years, without ever making a deposit. That's not family. That's parasitism." The word felt harsh, but accurate. I thought about all the times I'd helped Vanessa, co-signed her first apartment lease when she had no credit, lent her $2,000 she never paid back, listened to hours of complaints about bosses and boyfriends and bad roommates. What had I received in return? Missed birthdays, forgotten promises, and now this ultimate betrayal disguised as family unity. Part of me wonders if I should have just said yes, I admitted, given her some role, avoided the explosion. "And then what?" Rachel asked. "Spent the next decade watching her show up late, cut corners, and blame you when things went wrong? Resented her every day for being there when she didn't earn it?" Rachel shook her head firmly. You did the right thing. The hard thing, but the right thing. Then why does it feel awful? Because you're grieving. Grieving? You're grieving the family you wished you had, the sister you wanted Vanessa to be, the parents you deserved. That's allowed. But don't mistake grief for regret. They're not the same. Her words cracked something open in my chest. She was right. I was mourning something I'd never actually had. A family that celebrated my success instead of trying to profit from it. Parents who showed up. A sister who wanted to build alongside me instead of stealing what I built. How long until this feels better? I asked. I don't know. Months, probably. Maybe a year. Maybe never completely. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. But you'll survive it. You've survived worse. We finished the bottle and the Thai food. Rachel crashed on the couch in my office, too drunk to drive home safely. I lay on the floor next to her, using my jacket as a pillow, staring at the ceiling and thinking about nothing and everything. The next few weeks crawled by in a strange limbo. I blocked my parents' numbers after the 15th call went unanswered. Extended family members picked sides, and I lost several people I thought actually cared about me. My grandmother sent a handwritten letter about the importance of forgiveness. Conveniently forgetting, she'd cut off her own sister over a dispute about inherited jewelry. But business boomed. The Seattle catering order turned into a monthly contract. Derek's firm loved our spreads so much they recommended us to 3 other companies. A food blogger's post about our cinnamon rolls went viral, and we had a line out the door for 2 straight weeks. I hired 2 more employees in January to keep up with demand, bringing the total staff to 10. Success felt bittersweet when I had no family to share it with. But my work family, Kesha, my bakers, my baristas, they celebrated every win. They high-fived when we hit revenue goals. They brought champagne when the Bon Appetit writer confirmed the feature. They created the family environment I'd needed all along. Do you want to learn something? I asked. Vanessa? Rachel guessed. I nodded. Rachel considered this carefully. She'd been there for every family dinner that ended in tension, every phone call where I cried in frustration, every time I'd almost caved to keep the peace. Maybe, she said. Probably not anytime soon, though. She'd have to face some uncomfortable truths about herself first. Like that she's entitled, like that she's scared. Rachel nodded slowly. Entitled people are usually just terrified people wearing arrogance as armor. I thought about Vanessa's perfect blowout, her expensive blazer, the practiced speech that fell apart when I refused to play my role in her script. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe underneath the demands was just a 26-year-old woman who didn't know who she was or what she wanted, grasping at anything that looked stable. But that didn't make it my responsibility to save her. I'm not the villain here, I said quietly. No, Rachel said. You're just the person who finally said no. 3 days later, a text from Vanessa appeared. I ate the croissants. They were really good. I stared at it for 10 minutes before responding. Thanks. Nothing else followed. We didn't reconcile. My parents sent a stiff Christmas card that year with no invitation to visit. My phone stayed quieter. The absence of their constant needs felt like space to breathe, and also like a kind of grief. But the bakery thrived. I hired 2 more employees in January, started a wholesale program with local coffee shops. In March, a food writer from Bon Appetit reached out about a feature. I taught a sourdough masterclass that sold out in 48 hours. Everything I'd built stayed mine. Some Tuesday morning, 6 months after the confrontation, I arrived at 3:30, as always, and found Vanessa sitting on the front steps. She looked smaller somehow, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of interview armor. I got a job, she said without preamble. Marketing coordinator at a nonprofit downtown. It's not glamorous, but it's good work. Real work. I unlocked the door, letting her follow me in. That's great, Ness. She watched me turn on lights, start the ovens, begin the morning's familiar routine. I didn't offer her anything, didn't fill the silence. If she'd come to say something, she could say it. I was wrong, she finally said, about deserving partnership, about all of it. I kept measuring flour. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I'm glad you figured it out, genuinely, but it doesn't change anything. Her face crumbled slightly, then firmed. I know, I wanted you to know I get it now. What I was asking for, what you built. She moved closer to the counter where I was working, watching my hands move through the familiar motions of measuring, mixing. The start of another batch that would become something people loved. I've been working 60-hour weeks at the nonprofit, she continued. My boss is demanding, and the pay is, Well, compared to what I made at the startup, I come home exhausted every night. And last week, she told me I needed to improve my time management because I was falling behind on deadlines. She laughed bitterly. I wanted to quit on the spot, just walk out like I've done before. But then I thought about you, about how you've never had the luxury of quitting when things got hard. So I stayed. I'm still there. I looked at her fully then. This stranger who used to know all my secrets. We'd grown into such different people, wanted such different things. Maybe we'd always been incompatible and just spent our childhood not noticing. That's good, Vanessa, I said softly. Genuinely. Sticking with something difficult. That's growth. It's hell, she said flatly. But it's mine. My hell. My accomplishment when I finally get something right. I never understood that before. That the struggle is part of what makes success feel real. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. This was more self-awareness than I'd heard from her in years. Mom thinks I'm punishing myself, she added. She keeps suggesting I look for something better suited to my talents. She doesn't get that I need to prove I can do hard things, that I'm more than just the baby everyone protects. Mom's never going to get it, I said gently. She's too invested in seeing you a certain way. I know, I'm starting to accept that. Vanessa wrapped her arms around herself. I'm also in therapy now. The nonprofit offers it through their benefits. My therapist asked me to write down all the times I've been given things versus earning them. The list it was really unbalanced. Do you want to learn something? I asked. She blinked. What? I'm doing croissants. It takes 3 days start to finish, probably the most labor-intensive thing we make. I gestured to the workspace. Wash your hands. I'll show you the first fold. Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe. Or relief. She washed her hands. I guided her through the butter incorporation, the precise folding technique, the gentle handling required. She was clumsy at first, too aggressive, but she listened when I corrected her. We worked until 5:30 when Kesha arrived and stopped short, seeing my sister covered in flour. Morning, I said casually. Vanessa's learning lamination. Keisha's eyebrows rose, but she rolled with it. Cool. Coffee? Vanessa left before the morning rush, flour still on her jeans, and my instructions to return Thursday if she wanted to learn the second fold. She came back Thursday, and the following Tuesday, and the Thursday after that. We didn't talk about that morning with our parents. We didn't dissect our childhood or assign blame. We just baked, and slowly, over weeks and months of 4 a.m. lessons, we built something new. Not partnership, I never offered that, but an apprenticeship of sorts. A way for her to understand what I did in her bones instead of just in her assumptions. She never asked for anything again. Some months later, she mentioned her nonprofit was planning a fundraiser. Do you think maybe I could donate some pastries for the silent auction? She asked. I'll pay for ingredients. I donated 3 dozen cookies. She didn't make it about family or obligation. She just thanked me like any client would. Mom called the following Christmas. I heard you and Vanessa are talking again sometimes. That's good, honey. I'm glad. She didn't apologize. I didn't expect her to. Some people simply weren't built for accountability. I'd made peace with that, with the limitations of who my parents were versus who I needed them to be. We're having dinner on Christmas Eve, Mom added, tentative. If you girls want to come. I'll think about it. Vanessa and I went together in the end. Dad hugged me at the door, that same apologetic look in his eyes. Mom set the table with her good china. We ate ham and sweet potatoes and pretended we were a functional family for a few hours. It wasn't healing, it wasn't closure, it was just what it was. Imperfect people sharing a meal because bloodlines are stubborn things. But I drove myself there in my own car. And I left when I was ready, not when they expected me to stay. I'd learned the difference between showing up and sacrificing myself. One was generosity, the other was self-destruction. Years passed. The bakery continued to grow. We expanded the wholesale program, started shipping nationwide, even opened a second location across town that I let Keisha manage. She'd earned it, proven herself 100 times over. The 10-year anniversary arrived on a sunny April morning. We threw a party with free coffee and pastry samples all day. Regulars who'd been there since week 1 brought flowers. Keisha gave a speech about growth and resilience that made me cry. Local news came by for a fluff piece that ran during the evening broadcast. Vanessa showed up with a card and a small gift, a vintage French rolling pin she'd found at an antique store. For the baker who taught me what hard work actually means, the card read. I hugged her. She hugged back. We were never going to be the close sisters we might have been in some alternate universe. Too much damage, too many years of dysfunction. but we found something real in the ruins, something built on respect instead of obligation. That night, after everyone left and I was doing final cleanup, I stood in my empty bakery and just breathed. The space held 10 years of effort, thousands of early mornings, countless batches of dough. Every crack in the counter, every stain on the floor, every perfectly broken-in oven mitt told a story I'd written myself. Nobody gave me this. I didn't inherit it or have it handed over. I built it from nothing, with my own scarred hands and stubborn refusal to quit when everything screamed at me to give up. And it was mine, completely, undeniably mine. That was worth more than any family approval, any partnership, any keeping the peace. Worth more than I'd even understood when I tore up those papers. Some things belong to you because you're born to them. Other things belong to you because you earned every inch of them. I'd learned the difference, finally, and I'd never let anyone convince me otherwise.